What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Going the Distance podcast presented by ImmaculateSports.com. Twitter's at ImacSports.
Instagram is also at Max Sports.
TikTok, YouTube, Immaculate Sports. It's episode 283. And two really big things coming up this next week are the World Baseball Classic and the NFL free agency. So that's basically what it is, a half of the episode for each.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun episode today. WBC is obviously something that doesn't happen every single year. Last time that we saw it in 2023 was amazing. So looking forward to going over that. I don't know if we'll talk about every single team because we just don't have the time restraints for that. But we'll definitely be talking about your team or your country if it is going on to the quarterfinal rounds. NFL free agency predictions, there's about 20 guys that we have right now. Added Kyler Murray to the list today. Top free agents, usually sometimes it's been more that we've done. But with the WBC, it's probably, not wise to do 50 free agency predictions. So we have 20 main guys, a couple offensive linemen, a lot of skill position players, and some pass rushers as well too. So that will be fun to get into in a March that's going to have a lot of fun episodes. I would see on here in the future March Madness stuff starting in a couple weeks. The MLB season starting in a couple weeks as well too. So look out for those episodes in the future. But this one is going to be a fun one because we got a lot of stuff to talk about. And I'll let you get started with the opener. NFL Combine was this past week as well too.
This was the fastest NFL Combine of all time. Every position ran their best 40 and other agility drills, the fastest ever, except for quarterbacks. So I got a shout out to my guys I named last week. Mike Washington, 4.33. Bryce Lance, 4.34. Taylon Green, basically recreating Calvin Johnson's combine. Even Maxie Hennichor from Arizona State ran tied for the fastest 40 for all of O-linemen. So it kind of what I expected, but it's good to see that these top guys are running still and putting in work too and breaking records. The depth of this class is what makes it interesting to me. Already pretty nice wide receiver class adds two late round guys that run sub 4.3s. Brennan Thompson of Mississippi State and Xavier Thomas of LSU, not to mention all of the front seven players that have me really intrigued for the Jets picking high in the first round this year. Overall, very cool. We got to see some freak athletes, and it seems like we're only going to keep getting more and more, kind of like how the NBA transformed with these 6'8" point guards recently.
Yeah, definitely fun combine to watch. I feel like we're starting to get more and more of people not running in the combine if they know that they're going to post bad scores. So we're seeing, maybe that has to do something with the tick up in speed is that we're just not – people that are slow just aren't racing because they know it's going to negatively affect their stuff. So maybe some play there by the agents. But interesting to watch, of course, always the stuff that goes on with the combine. Very unique sporting events. For me, best thing I saw, the A's bats have heated up, but specifically the third base race for the A's has been something that has gotten a lot of attention going into the year. A lot of A's fans before the season wanted, various free agents to play third base, whether it's Moncada, Eugenio Suarez. Obviously doesn't happen. They choose to go the McNeil route at second base instead. And the third base job was Harris, Hernandez, and Muncy to start off spring training. And Hernandez and Muncy, who are the two guys that I think most fans are pulling for in this spot, have gotten off to a really good start in spring training. I'm not going to say their numbers, but they're hitting the ball hard, they're swinging and missing less, and they're just being better baseball players than what they were in the past. And that's an encouraging sign for two young players who aren't really top prospects for the A's system, but always guys that every, super fan kind of had their eye on within the A's system. Now for Darell Hernandez, it gets a whole lot more interesting because he's going to go play for Team Puerto Rico in the World Baseball Classic. Usually the Puerto Rican shortstop spot's locked down by Francisco Lindor, but Lindor's not playing this year. So it looks like it's either Hernandez or Edwin Arroyo, Cincinnati Reds prospect, to take that shortstop spot. And in the first exhibition game for Puerto Rico today, Darell Hernandez was starting at shortstop. So maybe we'll get to see him, playing on the big screen, playing on national TV, which will be fun and a good glimpse of his talent at the national stage or international stage. And then Muncy, back at their base the whole time in Mesa, Arizona for the A's while spring training is going on. I assume, probably not as much visual attention, but he's definitely got my eyes for sure.
Shout out to Leo and Bolte too. They look like everyday players, and they have about a week worth of minor league and major league camp so far. So shout out to those guys.
Yeah, a couple of studs there. Maybe we'll talk more about them
Yeah.
in the future. Moving on though to where's your head at the main? I don't know if I call this the main event. Co-main event, the WBC Classic bracket predictions. The World Baseball Classic technically starts tomorrow, so definitely a good time for us to do this now. Chinese Taipei in Australia play tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and then from there on out, we're littered with games for the next 2 weeks, which will be very fun to watch. So we're just going to start by going through Pool A and the two teams that will qualify into the quarterfinals. We're not going to get into the bracket for that quite yet, but going over the winner and the runner-up will probably be the correct way to start. So we'll start off with Pool A that is in San Juan. It's Canada, Colombia, Cuba, Panama, and Puerto Rico. In my opinion, probably the worst pool. I think that's pretty fair to say, but not really any team that's like terrible either. So it should be a pretty fun pool. We'll go in the second team first. Who is the runner-up in Pool A for you?
So Pool A, I agree, right? Obviously, two of the main players, Puerto Rico and Cuba, have had some trouble bringing most of their players over here, unfortunately. But I don't think that's going to stop the chaos at all. Canada didn't get it done last time. Colombia has been a spoiler too, but I am going to go with Canada, a mostly major league filled team, because they don't have to play the USA this year. They'll be number two.
Yeah, I went with Canada as number two as well, too. They got a ton of big league pitchers, Logan Allen, Michael Soroka, Cal Quantrill, Jamison Taillon, and one of those guys are, aces in their own right. They're still big league pitchers. They're still guys that can get outs for you no matter when and where. Back in the bullpen might be a little scary, but they're making up for that with the lineup. Liam Hicks, Bo Naylor, great catching duo. A ton of big league talent throughout the infield and the outfield, and some great center field defense. Looking forward to it. Denzel Clark out there.
Oh, yeah.
So I went with Canada number two. And then obviously you'll see who our number one is here in a second.
Yeah, we're sticking with Puerto Rico. Yadier Molina is the manager, so even if they are missing half of their roster, I think they're going to have better pitching, better game management, but even better power hitting than Cuba, surprisingly, this year, too. So I still stuck with Puerto Rico at the top.
Yeah, I went with Puerto Rico number one as well, too. This one was pretty easy for me. Bullpen's good. Starting rotation is debatable. Seth Lugo and Emil Rodriguez should be the two guys to watch out for there. Their lineup is obviously their main thing. Infield bringing in Nolan Arenado. It just kind of feels like a trade in the WBC, which is weird. But he's playing for Team Puerto Rico, Daryl Hornaz, who I mentioned. And then their outfield, Willie Castro, Elliot Ramos, Eddie Rosario, a bunch of big league talent out there. I went with them number one. Colombia, Cuba, and Panama, fun teams. Cuba's a very old squad. Panama's got some young flame to them. But definitely the two teams that stand out for me in this pool. Moving on to Pool B, let's actually go the other way because then it's a little bit easier to talk about the teams that are missing in that second spot. The winner of Pool B, I mean, this is a layup here. Who's taking home Pool B in Houston?
Well, I think we got to go with the United States of America over here. I didn't have a whole lot of notes for them yet. We're obviously going to talk about them later. So I'll stop right there. Team USA wins the pool.
Yeah, definitely don't want to get too much into some analysis here to, kind of give away what's going on in the future. But this team is very good. The Team USA, number one in Pool B. And then a Pool B that doesn't really have a very clear second team, I'd say. Mexico is probably the favorite. But who did you choose as the second squad?
Italy has caused some major chaos in this tournament before. They do have a really good lineup, but I think they might give up 10 runs to Mexico. So I ended up sticking with Mexico here. It's also a very good lineup, major league pitching, and they still have Randy Arozarena. So I don't think these guys are going anywhere. Maybe could even move on with a 2-2 record in this. this division or pool, not division.
Mexico team is interesting to me. Obviously, they have the offense: Randy Rosarena, Jaron Duran, Jonathan Aranda, who really broke out last year. But the pitching is something that's really hurting for me right now. Taj Bradley just came out a few days ago. Now the only starter that they really have is Taiwan Walker. Their bullpen's good. Don't get me wrong. Andres Munoz at the back end of the game is about as good as you could possibly get in the WBC. But their starting pitching and getting to that back end is going to be really, really tough. And that's where Team Italy comes in. They have a ton of big league pitching. Maybe not an ace, but Aaron Nola pitched in big games. Michael Lorenzen's had some moments. And they have a ton of relievers: Dan Altavilla, Matt Festa, Adam Ottavino, Greg Weissert, Alec Jacob, who's one of the more funky guys in the league. And their lineup is a lot better than what we saw in the last WBC. Vinny Pasquantino is the guy who's the mainstay, but Thomas Sagaci's there, Andrew Fisher's there, John Birdie, who's played an impact role on some good teams in the past. And then their outfield with Cags, Canzone, and Marcy is a very good sleeper, one of the best outfields in the WBC. So I have Team Italy as the second qualifier in Pool B. Moving on to Pool C, this one is in Tokyo. This is the one that gets started first. The winner, probably going to be the home represented team in Team Japan.
Yeah, Japan should be sweeping this poll, you would think. That is not where the chaos comes from in Pool C.
Yeah, Japan, definitely the team to win it for me in my eyes. One of the rosters that we probably have the least familiarity with, which is unfortunate just because we're not able to see MPB as much as maybe we'd like to in the US. But this is a good roster. They won it last time, so you got to give them the benefit of the doubt. And then the runner-up in Pool C.
Yeah, well, last time Australia did make it to the next round. But in my opinion, I'm thinking South Korea versus Chinese Taipei is going to be the deciding game here. I feel like both of these teams are always going 2-2, just missing out. Taiwan has some really good prospects and a pretty good resume. But I say Korea finally does make it to the second round, led by all of the guys who play in the KBO together, plus Jung-Hoo Lee. I heard Hanjin Ryu is even going to pitch in this tournament too, which is pretty cool. So I would love to see Korea move on. It's just such a great team chemistry. And I'll obviously we'll get into the strategy as we go on, but that's who I have winning in pool play.
Yeah, if I'm going to act like I know the people that are in Chinese Taipei or on Team Korea, I can't. But I have more trust in the KBO and the Koreans this time around because they've produced so many big league talent players. And while it's no knock on Chinese Taipei, they have a ton of guys who are in big league systems right now. There just isn't, a Jung-Hoo Lee on that team, or just a ton of different guys that have came over, or even Dane Dunning and Riley O'Brien, who are going to factor in for this Korean team, who have been effective big league pitchers at one point in their career. Riley O'Brien, really good last year in the back end of the bullpen for the St. Louis Cardinals. So I went with Korea as my second team. Chinese Taipei's definitely a close third, and then Australia and Czechia are two fun teams in the back end. And then Pool D, this one's a bit all over the place. The DR, Israel, Netherlands, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. This one's in Miami, so probably going to be the most fired up fans here. Who was winning Pool D for you?
I think if not Pool A, this is the pool that if we get an upset, it will completely destroy everybody's bracket this year. Because I am going to stick with the team that got upset last time around, the DR. Super stacked roster this time around. So DR is going to be my number one team.
Yeah, DR is my number one team as well, too. This is an all-star team, especially on the hitting side. Their lineup is ridiculous. I'll get more into the pitching as we go on, but that lineup alone should be good enough to not just qualify, but win Pool D. And then the runner-up.
So Israel and the Netherlands, they've had huge moments in the World Baseball Classic too. I remember, I believe it was 2017 with like Ike Davis. Those guys won some games they definitely shouldn't have. And the Netherlands, I even debated them here too. But here's the thing. Jurickson Profar, we'll talk about him later on, I guess. That's not helping. Even if it's just one guy. I know in baseball, it's not like basketball. You lose one guy in the lineup, you're not screwed. But Bad juju with the Netherlands. So I will go Venezuela, number two. That lineup is always awesome. Like Miggy may not be playing, but he's still the hitting coach and one of the best lineups comparable to the maybe just under the DR.
Yeah, Venezuela is the team I went with. The pitching isn't, ridiculously crazy. Ranger Suarez is the main name here. A few fun bullpen guys, Palencia, Luinder Avila, who I mentioned on Twitter as one of my guys to break out this year. The catchers, William Contreras and Salvador Perez, elite duo. Infield, Arias, Contreras, the other Contreras, that is, Michael Garcia, Andres Jimenez, Eugenio Suarez, Gleyber Torres, Ezequiel Tovar, and then the outfield, Chirrio, Acuna, and Walier Abreu. I mean, that's one of the toughest outs throughout the WBC that we're going to see. I think in terms of just, being a pest at pitchers, like every single one of these guys, like Garcia, Arias, I'm like, damn, those guys are really tough to get out. And that's 1 through 9 for them. So they're going to cause havoc for sure. Pitching is something that might concern me a little bit, but Venezuela qualifies in Pool D for me. Which sends us to the quarterfinal. This is where things get interesting, and the bracket gets a little bit confusing because there's A2 versus B1. A2, or the 2 means runner-up, winner. 1 means that they won the pool. We'll start off with A2 versus B1, which is Canada versus the USA for me. Same for you. Who's winning the North versus the South?
Sorry, boys. This ain't your sport either. The USA lineup is just too good at the end of the day for whoever's going to be pitching. James Paxton, Cal Quantrill, they're going to have their hands full in this one. They might give up 10 runs as well. Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't really any doubt for this in me. USA is the team to pick here. Definitely, you can't even really say it's bias. It's just facts. Yeah. So USA moves on, which sends us to C2, which is Korea for me, and then D1, which is the DR for me as well. So It seems like we're aligned there as well, which is good. So who do you have winning this fun and unique, diverse matchup?
It is. It's almost like going back. If you've ever watched old clips when they counted for the Olympics back in like 2000. But I am going to go with the DR over Korea. Like I said earlier, the Dominican team has slipped up before, but they're going to be fine against South Korea. Small ball will get you through your pool. I just don't seeing a team like this being able to rally after they go down 4 or 5 plus runs to a team like the Dominican Republic. It's just too much to come back from when you don't have a lot of superstars in the lineup.
Yeah, the firepower is too elite for the DR. Korea, might have some matchups that they win just based off of unfamiliarity. But I feel like the DR is really good at, playing on the fly and adjusting to the scenarios that they have. So I picked the Dominican Republic to move on as well, too, setting up a U.S. versus DR matchup in the semifinals that we'll get to in a minute. But before that, we have to go to the other side of the brackets where it's B2. It's Italy for me and Mexico for you.
Yeah.
Versus A1, which is Puerto Rico for both of us.
Yeah. What a first round matchup for me, Mexico and Puerto Rico. Maybe a little Seth Lugo against Taiwan Walker matchup. And unfortunately, Francisco Lindor will not be playing, of course. But honestly, it kind of felt like the tides were turning here for Puerto Rico. So I'm going to do it. You mentioned the bullpen. Mexico, I trust late in the game. Randy Rosarina, Alejandro Kirk, Duran. I trust those guys more than what Puerto Rico was able to put together. And it's not necessarily their fault. They might not necessarily have the better chemistry over Puerto Rico, but I did pick Mexico for the second time in a row to beat them.
Yeah, Italy versus the PR for me. Good matchup for Italy. It's a very left-handed lineup for Italy, and Puerto Rico does not have any lefty pitcher really on their team that scares me. It's Raymond Burgos, who I haven't heard of, Giovanni Moran, who's had a cup of coffee in the big leagues, and Gabriel Rodriguez, who I don't know who that is. That's all the lefties that they have. So I think it's a good matchup for Italy, but I think the firepower and the experience on the Puerto Rican side is what's going to prevail here. I think Italy is a team to be reckoned with once we get to 2029 or 2032.
Yeah.
As Cags gets older and we see some of these other guys who are prospects really get full playing time with that roster. But right now, I think it's still PR's side. So Puerto Rico moves on to the semifinal for me. And then that sets up a very fun as well, too, last quarterfinal matchup. D2 versus C1, which should be Venezuela versus Japan for both of us.
Yes, sir. Another ridiculous matchup. Probably the most intense game so far of the tournament, if it does end up happening. Venezuela always has one of the best lineups in the entire tournament. But what I see is that their pitching staff doesn't come even close to Japan. They could hypothetically get them in a crazy extra inning game, but Ranger Suarez isn't pitching in every game. They have to face the best player in the world, and I just don't think the Venezuela is going to get it done this time.
Yeah, this is a fun matchup. I think kind of just like what we saw with Korea versus the DR. These are, an Asian country versus a Central America country or, Caribbean country that has very unique and different views on baseball. And I think we're going to see that those type of things clash in this tournament, which is always makes it one of the more, probably the most fun tournament to watch for any baseball fan, more so than the playoffs. Usually, a lot more left-handed hitters that we see on Japan's side, but there isn't really a lefty reliever that moves the needle for me on Venezuela's side. I know they have Eduardo Rodriguez and Ranger Suarez. Maybe we see both of them pitch in this game, but I still don't think it's going to be enough to take down Japan and the superpower that they are in this tournament. Which sends us to not super final, the semifinal. The super final is going to be the end of this one. But the U.S. versus the DR. I mean, this isn't David versus Goliath. This is David versus or Goliath versus Goliath.
Yeah.
Like, this is an elite matchup here. Something that we did not get to see last WBC, and something that kind of robbed us in the past 3 years. So, how does this matchup play out?
Yeah, legendary rivalry from the two most ridiculous looking lineups this tournament has ever had. I mean, my goodness, man, the DR lineup it's almost over the top, like too much compared to the rest of the tournament. A lot of people are worried about the starting rotation of the USA team, but I have a few reminders. These guys have a pitch count. Also, when the USA won it last in 2017, I thought their best starter was Drew Smyly. So I'm fine with this group, right? These guys are better than that. Nolan McLean was just announced that he would be the starter in the championship, but they got Matt Boyd who pitched today. Clay Holmes has been great as his transformation into a starter continues. Of course, Logan Webb is going to be in conversation probably for this round right here. So I got to go with my boys in a very crazy game in Miami. USA moves on, just like a rematch of maybe the best baseball game of the last 10 years. Was with their semifinal game in Miami in 2017.
Yeah. This is an elite game. I assume most people who give a fuck about baseball will be watching this game. We might even get Ian to watch this one.
Yeah.
Our Dominican friend who does not care about baseball, surprisingly. I have Logan Webb circled for this game. I don't know who would be on the DR side, but I mean, there's a bit more media coming from the U.S. on who's going to pitch what game, and it seems like Logan Webb would be the guy for this one. And he's really good at neutralizing really good lineups. He's done it so many different times in his career. And on the DR side, I don't know who it's going to be, but if it's not Christopher Sanchez, it's going to be really tough to take down this U.S. lineup. As we saw today, like in the U.S. scrimmage, like it's just endless tough at-bats, not just, guys that are tough to get out, guys that are going to do damage against you consistently. And that's just such a rare thing. And I know the DR side has it as well too, but the DR does not have David Bednar, Brad Keller, Gabe Spire, Garrett Whitlock, Griffin Jacks, and Mason Miller to close out in their bullpen. And that's something that the U.S. does to be able to match all the tough possible things that they're going to deal with this Dominican lineup. So I originally had the DR winning, but after what I saw today and realizing how deep and how much better than what I thought the USA team was going to be, when it seems like, this guy's not playing or that guy's not playing, that roster still is so damn good. And I think it's better than what we saw last time in 2023. So the US is the team I picked to move on to the final.
Yes, sir.
And then on the other side, Puerto Rico versus Japan. Do we both have that?
I have Mexico.
Okay, Mexico versus Japan. Mm-hmm. Puerto Rico versus Japan for me. Who do you have winning that matchup?
So Japan versus Mexico, another rematch here. Japan won this one 6-5 in the semifinals last time around. And I would love to see the same thing happen again. Japan shut down everybody last time around. And even though I like the new era of Team Mexico baseball, I also think that this is a team that's not going anywhere throughout the next 10 years or so. I don't think they're in the same tier. I think they just happen to get a couple matchups that I like more, even though they aren't the most dominant team. So a lot of Team Japan, well, like you said, coming from the NPB, so it's hard to tell exactly what the strategy is going to be. But history tells me to trust these guys against a weaker Mexico lineup, just like last time, 2023. So I'm taking Japan and USA.
Yeah, Puerto Rico versus Japan for me in this quarterfinal, or not quarterfinal, semifinal matchup. And it's again, usually a more left-handed lineup with Japan, kind of similar to what we saw with Italy and what I just mentioned in the previous round. But the hitters on Japan are quite a bit better than what they are on Italy. So I really just don't think there's a way for Puerto Rico to neutralize this lineup. Japan has the experience in these late moments as well too. If we were seeing Lindor and some of the other guys that we've seen on Puerto Rico's rosters in the past, maybe they put a bit of a shot here. But I would not be shocked if this is a game that's like 10-0 in the seventh inning and they have to mercy roll it. Like I would not be shocked if that happens. Japan moving on to the final, which sets up the all-time classic, what we saw last time, the U.S. versus Japan in the final. I assume that's in Miami as well too.
Yeah.
How do you have this playing out?
I think we all need to see this game one more time just to really know. Last game was so good. 3-2. Japan wins it, ending in the Shohei versus Trout showdown. And I really don't think I'm being a homer when I say this, but I also think things are going to be a little different this time around for the USA. Judge, Schwarber, Raleigh, Witt, Harper, they're all going to hit a ton of home runs in this tournament. We don't need a definite ace to win the tournament either. They say McLean, right, would probably start this game. But I know you just mentioned the bullpen. I'm one round late on you, but I agree. Mason Miller, Gabe Spire, Bednar, Jax, Whitlock, many, many more with different speeds and different arm slots, very similar to that Japan bullpen. So give me USA 7-5 this time. I want big home run hitters up for Team USA as much as possible. Bring them off the bench if it's a big situation with a runner on base and just try to go deep. That's USA baseball right there. Obviously different from Japan, but I think this time around, this would be the style of game that we would win.
Yeah, this is always a unique matchup when we get it. Was a phenomenal game last time that we saw it. Like you mentioned, the Trout versus Shohei to end it. A ton of pressure pitches, pre-pitch clock. So a lot of suspense in between the pitches. Something that's always interesting for me in this game. And when you think about the MLB and all these USA hitters, is when you go and face a pitcher in the big leagues in the MLB, you know what he's going to throw to you. You know the percentages. You know when it gets 2-2, he's going to throw you this. You know what he's looking for. Likelihood. You've probably faced that guy 10, 15, 20 times in your career. Versus Japan, I don't know how much video that they have. Like, even if it's just a tournament and it's, 7 games worth, that's not going to be enough to really tell you what Japan's going to be throwing at you. And I think that could be a big problem for the U.S. I think that's one of the reasons why we saw only 2 runs from the U.S. in that championship game 3 years ago, is because it's just such a unique scenario that you're not used to in the MLB with, the modern era of information that we see provided. And on the other side, I would imagine Japan probably has pretty good access to what the U.S. has done. Maybe, it's probably reciprocated in all honesty. Like, the U.S. probably has all the stuff on Japan, but there's none of that visual reps that you've actually seen against them, that you've actually gone against them. And I think that probably plays something into it. In Japan, it's been that way the whole tournament. It's always like that in WBC. You're always facing guys that you've never faced before that you might have the information on. So I think Japan gets the upper edge there. But where the USA claps back is that all of our bullpen guys are completely different type of pitchers than what you see in Japan. And I think that was such a big thing from Mark DeRosa and creating this squad is that in Japan you're not seeing 97 to 100 super consistently, and a guy that has perfect breaking ball, curveball off of it, and is able to dot it up like that. The hard throwers in the MPB are Roki, who we saw in the past have control issues. It's a Shintaro Fujinami who throws super hard, but you just don't know where it's going. It's a lot of 92 to 95 still in the MPB, and I think the overpower of volume might be something that's super tough for Japan hitters to deal with. I think we'll see another Ultimate Classic. We see, a phenomenal just chess match between the two managers, but I do think the USA gets them this time and brings home. Is it gold? Is that what they call it in this scenario?
That's what I was thinking, because it was originally the Olympics.
Yeah, but I think the USA wins it. I think it really can go either way. There's so many different angles that you can play into this. Japan literally beat us 2 years ago or 3 years ago, so there is that. Not having Shohei pitch probably sucks, but as we know, Yoshinobu Yamamoto can close games even when he pitched 95 pitches the day before. That's an impossible scenario in the WBC because it just does not allow you to throw that many pitches. It's going to be phenomenal. I hope that's what it goes to, not just for USA fans' sake, but for baseball fans' sake. I hope we get to see DR in the elimination rounds. I hope we get the best teams play. I hope we get some fire out of all the clubs because we should be seeing that. And that's what makes this tournament so elite. Is a guy hitting a home run and the whole dugout's out of the dugout, and they're all going crazy. And the Bubasulas are out in Miami, and we get a whole bunch of noise. That's what makes it fun. That's what makes this tournament this. And starts tomorrow. So hopefully that gets you going.
I'm super pumped up, dude. I'm super pumped up.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see a bunch of A's prospects play as well too. Wei and Len for the Chinese Taipei squad. Denzel Clark, Daryl Hornais, like I mentioned, should be a lot of fun. We've got something else to get to, though. It's our NFL free agency predictions. Let's see if I can. 19 people that we have.
Okay.
So just under 20. We'll start off with the quarterback and a guy who's just named a free agent today. Kyler Murray, officially released by the Cardinals. He can sign on for veteran minimum, which changes everything else here because he's still going to get paid about $38 million, I think, from the Cardinals. Who do you think takes on Kyler Murray?
I wasn't going to give this team a new quarterback today, but after the release, that makes things a lot more simple. They don't have to trade for the contract. The Jets can guarantee Kyler Murray a lot of things that other teams can't, that I think are non-negotiables. So no risk of being on the bench for someone like J.J. McCarthy, a huge New York market, actual starting level quarterback money. I think they would go, I know you're okay with the minimum, but let's throw you 20 because we have it. I don't think Minnesota would do that. So I think they could definitely work out a short-term deal with him rather than Miami. I think Miami's looking for more of a longer-term deal. I think the Jets are looking for stability. So I am starting to think that they wouldn't even offer on Malik Willis. I don't think they're interested in that kind of thing. I think they just want a guy to come in on 2 years and be able to cut him after one if he sucks, just like we've been doing for the last 10 years.
Kyler Murray's a weird spot for me. I think the thing that he wants is stability. We saw a lot of instability in these past couple of years with Arizona. I think he wants to go to the spot that he has the highest guarantee of starting in year 2 out of any location. Minnesota is an interesting one. The Jets, of course, are an interesting one. But the team that kind of stands out to me is Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers, we don't know yet. He probably won't retire until like week 4 or something like that. But I think Pittsburgh, there's a runway where Kyler Murray can start for them for 5 straight years. And I think in New York, with how things go, there's so many different things that can go wrong. And Pittsburgh's a place that things never really go truly wrong. They never go terrible, but they usually end up all right. And I know, maybe that changes with Mike McCarthy, but that's also kind of a system that Kyler Murray's played in a little bit where it's, kind of just drop back and pass 40 times a game. And I know it's a bit different than what we saw in Arizona in the past few years, but I think he's kind of familiar with an offense like that. The Rams were also kind of an interesting team for me because I thought, maybe, they say, hey, we'll pay you the minimum, but you get paid 40 this year, and then you get to go start for Matthew Stafford in 2 years. I said no, that doesn't happen though. I say he goes to Pittsburgh. I think the veteran minimum is a play, and he goes to an 8-9 team in the AFC North, which is always a crazy division to play in.
Sure.
Moving on to the second quarterback that we have, and the second of three quarterbacks that we have on this list, Malik Willis, rated the number one free agent on NFL.com's top 101 free agents. Kind of a headliner there. Where do you think Malik Willis goes?
I feel like he's down to two right now, Miami or Arizona. And of course the Jets are going to be in the conversation because we don't have any quarterbacks right now. But like I said, I just feel like they're not really in the mood to give a multi-year deal to someone because they have so many draft picks coming up. They'd rather just draft one. So at this point, I'll stick with the Dolphins connection with Jeff Hafley since they're 100% releasing Tua. I still don't know what Arizona is thinking. Are they going to trade Jacoby Brissett? Maybe that's someone the Jets should talk about with them. But that's why I have Malik Willis going to Miami. There's also nobody there, and they have some money.
Yeah, Miami is interesting. Arizona's interesting. I think Arizona's more in a spot where they stick with Brissett for a year and draft like a Drew Aller or something and kind of work on that developmental spot there. I did choose the Jets. Maybe it doesn't happen and probably won't happen, but I think Malik Willis is probably the highest ceiling quarterback that we've seen hit the free agent market in a long time. If you consider Lamar a free agent when he kind of was, then definitely not. But besides Lamar, Malik Willis has a chance to be, a legitimate Pro Bowl level quarterback in the league from what we've seen in his starts and appearances in the past 2 years. Will he be that? Probably not, but I think he's a chance that can win you games. And I feel like this chair is getting a little bit hotter for Aaron Glenn than what he expected in year two. And I think Malik Willis gives him the best chance to win some games in week two or year two. Moving on to our first defensive player, Jalen Phillips, edge rusher, exciting player. Where do you have the Eagle and former Dolphin going?
Yeah, Redlands legend, Jalen Phillips. I got him going back to Philadelphia. Howie Roseman just spent a third-round pick on the guy, and he comes back from an Achilles tear and starts all 17 games. So I think they're going to be able to figure out a short-term deal, maybe 3 for 34 or something. Just one less issue for Philly. I think this is an offseason. They want to explore different things on the offense, but not really on defense. So I have him going back.
Yeah, there's a lot of intriguing options for Jalen Phillips. Best edge rusher in the class, I'd say. And I do think New England is the team that's going to cough up a ton of money for him. We saw with New England, getting to the quarterback matters in big-time games. That's the main reason why they lost the Super Bowl. Jalen Phillips is a guy who does exactly that. He gets to the quarterback. He creates turnovers. And they have some money to spend this year, and I think it's a guy who Vrabel will love. So Jalen Phillips, a guy that they've seen tons of times in Miami, doesn't stay in the division because he was on the Eagles, but kind of stays in the division if you were talking from 2 years ago. Next up, top offensive lineman in the class, presumably Tyler Linderbaum, center from the Ravens. Where do you have Linderbaum ending up?
The franchise tag price for this guy is ridiculous. It's like $30 million. So I do think the Ravens are kind of fucked here. The Bears should definitely be calling after today's news. Their center just retired, but they might be a little too late because there are two AFC teams that really, really, really need this guy. I think that's the Chargers or the Raiders. And with the rookie quarterback coming in, Vegas should have the green light to do whatever they want with the O-line. So I picked Las Vegas.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of things with Linderbaum to the Raiders, and I would not hate it. Don't get me wrong. I would gladly welcome in Tyler Linderbaum. This is a guy that we knew going back to college was going to be a stud in the NFL, and he is a stud in the NFL. I think the Bears probably make a pretty good push for him now, but I'm not exactly too sure what their cap situation is, and Linderbaum's going to require a ton of money.
Yeah.
The Chargers have a ton of money as well too. I think he ends up there. I think it's just a little bit more familiarity for him, and I don't think the Ravens were a bad home for him. They just didn't really have the money to hold him when it comes to the contract year this year. So I think he goes to the Chargers. Raiders make a push, but not enough to sway him from LA. Next up, big time wide receiver, big play wide receiver. Alec Pierce is the next guy.
Yeah, I had to kind of think on the fly. I just assumed that Alec Pierce would be the guy getting the franchise tag, but no, it goes to Daniel Jones. So I reconsidered everything. I don't think Indy can keep up with other contenders in the open market right now. I say Alec Pierce goes to New England. The news this week is they're going to force Stephon Diggs to take a pay cut, or they're just going to end up cutting him. So why not use that money to help the same position? Especially after what happened with Drake May in the Super Bowl. They just need whatever they can take right now if they can afford it. Of course, they need Diggs to take the pay cut, though, for this to work.
I know the Colts want Alec Pierce to return. From the reports that we've seen, that's what the Colts want to do. I don't know if that's what he wants to do. I think Alec Pierce gets what he wants in free agency if he goes out and tests. I think he can get 30 mil with how the NFL is nowadays and the importance of creating explosive plays out of nowhere. Alec Pierce is pretty much exactly that and one of the most explosive wide receivers in the league. And there's a team that needs to create big plays, that has a ton of money, and has a new head coach that loves to create explosive plays, and that's the Raiders. This is the guy who I am circling like a billion times right now in red ink, whatever you need to do. This is the guy I want in free agency. This is the guy who opens up your offense. This is the guy who changes Ashton Genty as a runner because there's another safety that can't play in the box anymore. Alec Pierce is the guy I want, and he would be the guy to change the Raiders offense. So Alec Pierce to the Raiders. Trey Hendrickson, another one of the pass rushers that could be up there with Jalen Phillips is the next guy that we're talking about.
All right. Trey Hendrickson, I have going to the Seattle Seahawks. He's already 3 feet outside of Cincinnati, just wants to get paid. Seattle should have enough money for their pick of whoever they want on the D line. We'll get to another guy that's on Seattle and what happens to him in this situation. But I'll just say it. It's Boye Mafe. We'll talk about him in a minute here. But if they get rid of Boye Mafe, add a couple more bucks on top, they should absolutely go for Hendrickson if they can.
Yeah. Hendrickson's an interesting player. Has had some, not issues, but disparities with the team. The Bengals in the past couple of years has seemed like he's been wanting to get out for about 3 years now at this point. And what better way to say F you to your former team than going to the Ravens and playing for them? They lose a pass rusher in this offseason likely as well, too. So Trey Hendrickson to the Baltimore Ravens. Next up, a top linebacker, the only linebacker that we'll talk about. I saw Bobby Okereke got released about 5 minutes ago, but Devin Lloyd is the main one on the market right now. Where do you have Devin Lloyd going?
Yeah, we won't know for sure about any of the free agency rumors until next week, but that's all we got right now. And what we hear from Jacksonville is they don't sound very enthusiastic at all about keeping Devin Lloyd. So I have him leaving. Dallas is a team we haven't mentioned yet that really needs to fix their defense, and there's no way they're getting Sonny Styles anymore. So we'll say Jerry brings in a top linebacker through free agency instead.
Yeah, the cap is interesting here. The Cowboys are interesting too because they're negative $58 million on the cap, but it doesn't even really seem to matter nowadays. It just you restructure a contract and you free up $85 million. I think that's what the Chiefs did a couple of weeks ago with Pat Mahomes. Devin Lloyd, I do think is going to get a bag. And maybe this is just me being nearsighted, but I do have Devin Lloyd going to the Raiders. There is a huge need at the linebacker position. There really wasn't. I know Devin White was there and Jamal Adams, but those two guys are very one-dimensional linebackers. Devin Lloyd is not. He can play the pass. He can play the run. There isn't too many guys like that in the NFL. So I think Devin Lloyd goes to a team that he gets probably the most money from in the Raiders, which would be the second guy I've said goes to the Raiders out of the first 7 here. So not a good look for me.
Hey, you got the money to spend, though.
Exactly. So might as well. Wishful thinking here. Moving on. Quarterback, Daniel Jones got the transitional tag, which means that he's pretty much a restricted free agent, very much similar to what we see in the NBA, where any offer sheet that he accepts, the Colts can match, and boom, he's a Colt again. Do you think Daniel Jones stays with the Colts here, or do you think some team pays him an absurd amount of money to go be the quarterback?
Jets Twitter today, big conversation was, should we just fuck with Indianapolis again? Like we already got 2 first-round picks. Should we try to get another one and make them match this deal? But no, I think he's going back. The GM was on with Daniel Jeremiah and Rich Eisen during the combine, and he's like, "Daniel, I know Danny's hurt, but he's our guy. All right, like stop asking me." So I think he will find a way back to Indy.
Yeah, I think he does as well too. It's a lot of money. It's like 37 million for the transitional tag. There would need to be some weird contract structure for a multi-year deal, I think, where he doesn't get paid a ton in year one, but gets paid a ton in year two, year three, from another team under some like conditional clause or whatever. But I don't see him leaving. I don't think there's going to be a team that's enough to cough up, enough to get him away. And when it worked in Indianapolis for him, I don't see him leaving because it's so much easier than playing in New York, as what we saw from him when he was on the Giants. And it's just a better scenario for him. So Daniel Jones back to the Colts. Next up, an edge rusher, Odafe Owe.
I got Odafe Owe going back to Baltimore, not the Chargers, with Jesse Minter, teaming back up with his boy Jesse Minter. It sounds like the Chargers aren't going to let Khalil Mack go anywhere. They're just going to be like, nope, you're retiring a Charger, dog. Sorry. So Owe will hit the open market. He won't break the bank. So I think fit is going to be his priority. That's why I have Baltimore here.
Yeah, fit I think matters for Owe as well too. That's why I chose Kansas City. They needed a pass rusher. Weren't great at getting to the quarterback this past year. Their defense is starting to get a little bit old. And when it comes to fit, what better opportunity than getting to the Super Bowl every single year than with Patrick Mahomes? I know he tore his ACL and they missed the playoffs last year, so maybe this is the worst time to be a Chief out of any time in the past 10 years, but you know that they're going to be back. And Odafe Owe is a guy that gets to the pass rusher, makes plays, and is disruptive in all sides of the football. So to Kansas City he goes. Next up, Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker hits the free agent market. As you'll notice throughout this list as we go, there is none of the guys who got franchise tagged on here, of course. So that's pretty obvious. So no Pitts, no Brees Hall, no Pickens. I think there's one other that I'm missing. But Kenneth Walker did not get tagged.
Yeah.
He's a free agent. Where do you think he goes?
If I'm Seattle, I got to bring this guy back. But two things. They didn't franchise tag him, which usually means that you're not close to an extension. So I don't know. I don't know if he's going back, dude. It's like every day further away from the Super Bowl makes me think he's going to leave. And there's always one team in the running back mix every year, but they keep falling just short of a deal. I think if Walker leaves Seattle, it's going to be because Kansas City gave him a big deal. It's kind of a no-brainer for Walker if he does get that deal, similar to what you were just saying. It's a great infrastructure most years, especially compared to, I know like Tennessee would probably go all in on him, or the Giants to be with Scadaboo or whoever else. I think he would pick Kansas City.
Yeah. Weird scenario with Kenneth Walker. You kind of just, expected a couple days after the Super Bowl, Kenneth Walker and the Seahawks have agreed to a 3-year, $45 million deal, whatever it is. Franchise tag was about $14 million, I think, for Kenneth Walker. He doesn't even get it. Tennessee and Washington could be players, I think. I think they might give him something. But after you win the Super Bowl, I think he's okay to take $10 million a year, go back to the Seahawks. I don't know why they wouldn't want him either. He's a guy who's kind of gotten better over time and just had his best stretch of his career. And usually running backs are pretty understandable in how much money they get. So I think going back to Seattle's what will happen, even if there is a bit of this, what's going on here type thing. Edge rusher next, Boye Mafe, not to be confused with Odafe Owe. Couple of fun names there, but where does Boye end up?
Well, if Seattle gets Trey Hendrickson, then Boye Mafe's probably not going to get what he's looking for. So I ended up moving him, like I hinted at earlier. I'm going to send him to the Washington Commanders. Defense is horrendous. They have about $86 million to spend, all on the defense. So here's where they start. Whatever edge rusher wants to come.
Yeah, I don't have Seattle getting anybody yet, except for the guys that they've had on their team. We're on a string of three players from Seattle talking about here with Rashid Shaheed next. And I do think Boye Mafe goes back. They have the money to spend. They haven't gotten anybody else in, the edge rusher world in my scheme here, unless it's like a Crosby trade, which I don't think would happen. But Boye Mafe back to Seattle. Next up, the trio of Seahawks, like I mentioned, Rashid Shaheed, where does he end up?
I finally have a guy going back to Seattle here, Rashid Shaheed. It's really up to him. I'm sure someone will pull out the checkbook for him, but this is a perfect situation for him in Seattle. He's opposite of JSN. And also there's Cooper Kupp, a guy who may not be the most flashy guy anymore, but it's still someone who causes attention away from your super track star sprinter Rashid Shaheed here. So coming off a Super Bowl, just get it done, man. Don't overthink it.
Yeah, Rashid Shaheed market I think will heat up after Alec Pierce gets signed because they are
Yeah.
very two similar wide receivers in being able to spread out the field, create 40, 50-yard plays. There is a bit more, obviously, kick return and just return specialist in general with Shaheed, so maybe he hits on that market a little bit. But I don't expect him to sign unless it's back to Seattle until after Alec Pierce signs. I think if Alec Pierce doesn't go to the Raiders, then Shaheed's a good fit there as well, too, obviously, with Kubiak. But I do think he goes back to Seattle. It makes sense. And I think why pick something that isn't broken, especially when it's thriving in Seattle? So I think he goes back to Super Bowl champs. Next up, your guy, Elijah Vera Tucker. Remember how happy you were when they drafted him. Don't know if you'll be happy if he's leaving. Where do you think AVT goes?
I got Elijah Vera Tucker going to the Chargers. I love AVT, but he's had 3 season-ending injuries in 5 years now. The Chargers have money to burn on that O-line. I had them missing out on Linderbaum earlier. So probably going after multiple guys on this list too would make sense. But anyways, he's a USC guy. Maybe he just wants to go back home. I'm sure he would get a decent payday. Maybe not as much as Linderbaum because he's been so injured, but should be on the Chargers list. I didn't think too hard about it.
Yeah, I had Linderbaum going to the Chargers. So I have AVT going to the Raiders. It just makes logical sense here.
Yeah.
This kind of depended on Jackson Powers Johnson, another hyphenated last name, like where they want him to play. And I think they end up on him being a center instead of a guard. If they said, hey, he's a guard, then Linderbaum's probably the guy that they put more emphasis on. But if he's a center, then it opens up a spot for a guard, and that's where Elijah Vera Tucker fits in. And he goes to the Raiders, gets a good payday, gets to keep all of it because there's no state income tax. And that takes us to another guard in David Edwards.
I got David Edwards going to Houston. I think the market is going to be big for him too, because he's been great in Buffalo. And I've heard this is one of the few guys I've heard like 12 different teams have already called his agent, like Detroit, New Orleans, Arizona. But Houston may outbid them all just based off of survival. Like they literally cannot continue on like this to CJ Stroud without spending some big money at the guard and center position.
Yeah, there is a huge need there. I think he goes back to LA. I know he's been in Buffalo, but the Rams are a team that's always trying to fix up their O-line. David Edwards does that, and I think it makes sense, so he goes to the Rams. Mike Evans, does he leave Tampa Bay? You can call him washed, you can call him whatever, but he is one of the greatest receivers of all time. Where does Big Mike end up?
I don't think he's washed. I also can't imagine Mike Evans playing anywhere other than Tampa Bay. But when it comes to receiver, this type of thing always seems to happen where they do play a couple of. Andre Johnson played for Tennessee. I had no idea. Fucking my coworker got that on me on Immaculate Grid one day. I was like, what? So I'm sending him to Buffalo. They clearly need an X receiver for Josh Allen, and that guy isn't going to be available in the draft for them. So they go with a huge AAV 2-year deal, bring in Mike Evans. I'm sure some other teams like San Francisco and Tennessee and New England will be in the combo too, but I think Buffalo has the opportunity to give him whatever he wants.
I like New England here. New England this is a disrespectful comp here. But Matt Collins is a pretty similar type of wide receiver where it's really, you know what he's very good at. It's downfield, throw him a toss up in the red zone. He's going to come down with it and make a play for you. Mike Evans is Matt Collins on steroids. That's exactly what he does. He serves as a red zone target for Drake May. That really didn't have. I mean, Diggs was a solid red zone target, but it's nothing close to what Mike Evans can offer you in that offense. So Mike Evans, I don't know what the AAV is like. I don't really know what his market's going to be like in general. But I do think this is probably the time that he leaves Tampa with the young receivers that they have there. So New England snags Mike Evans.
That would suck.
Only tight end that we have on this list is Isaiah Likely. There's a couple other tight ends that could be worthy, but Likely was the guy that probably has the highest ceiling. Likely has the highest ceiling out of any of these guys. So where does Isaiah end up?
This guy has so much potential, and he deserves a shot to start. I think John Harbaugh knows that too. So I'm sending him to the Giants. Just keep surrounding Dart with a bunch of weapons, and it'll eventually click, or you eventually get everyone fired. One of the two. And I'm leaning the first choice. Obviously, John Harbaugh is a very respectable manager of the football locker room. I don't know why I worded that so weird. Anyways, new regime. They need captain level guys with big potential, guys who are going to go hard for Harbaugh. And I think Likely is going to be one of those guys if they bring him in.
Yeah, I don't know what the market's going to be like for him because it could be, 10 plus million a year. I think that's a reasonable outcome with kind of just the connotation around Isaiah Likely in the past few years. I think the big time spenders or a lot of cap space teams are mainly the guys that are in for him or teams that are in for him right here. I went Washington. Zach Ertz is getting really old. Isaiah Likely is a great tight end to attack the seam. Kind of helps when you have experience playing for a quarterback that's uses the option as much as Jaden Daniels does. I think it's a good fit. Washington doesn't really have a guy like Isaiah Likely on the roster who you can count on. So Washington is a spot that I chose as landing for Isaiah Likely.
I like that.
Fun wide receiver on the next one, Wan'Dale Robinson. I feel like he's a guy like, damn, he's a free agent already. It's been that long into his career. A lot different than a Rashid Shaheed and an Alec Pierce. Quite literally the polar opposite. Where do you think Wan'Dale ends up?
Yeah, so far, Cleveland and Tennessee sound like the top names for Robinson. So I guess Ty goes to the cap space in a bidding war, which is Tennessee. They have a new regime. They have a ton of money. Robinson would be a great number 2 for Cam Ward. So now they just need to find a number 1 for Cam Ward also. So it's a start for Tennessee.
I actually think that makes sense. Wan'Dale's a super good third down wide receiver, moves the chains for you, quarterback, best friend type of guy. I think that could fit in Tennessee. But the team that I saw one guy project this on Twitter. I'm like, oh, that really makes a lot of sense, is Denver. Big time X wide receiver in Cortland Sutton. Obviously, Wan'Dale's not going to be that. They have Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant who can kind of eat into this role. But I don't really see both those guys as being a guy who Bo Nix can throw the ball to on 3rd and 4 to move the chains when you really need it. And Wan'Dale's like exactly that. We saw with Denver's offense in the 2 years of Bo Nix, for some reason they hate running the football. They hate dedicating into the run. And if you're going to be that way, you need a guy that you can consistently go to on 3rd down. And Wan'Dale is a guy that will help free up Cortland Sutton and just free up himself every single play because that's what he does and has done with usually pretty shitty quarterback play in New York. Two more guys, a running back and a wide receiver. Travis Etienne is a free agent, but does he go anywhere?
I'm going to have Travis Etienne leaving and going to New Orleans. Similar to my thinking with Walker and Kansas City earlier, I'm just not really sure if Jeremiah Love is actually going to be there for them anymore. He is like by far the top dog, not even close to. I guess Price is pretty good, but not even close to the number three guys after the Notre Dame. ETN had a great resurgence season, but Jacksonville kind of strikes me as the kind of team that wants to trust their development and would be okay letting him walk since they draft so many running backs every year, it feels like. And, Bigsby may be gone, but I'm sure they'll draft another couple guys too if he leaves.
I did make the easy choice here. ETN back to Jacksonville. There's a ton of different fits for when it comes to running backs, and maybe I'm just taking the boring way out for him and Walker. But those are two guys that I really feel like are I don't say identity of the team, but a really big part of those rosters and their offenses. And them leaving just doesn't really make a ton of sense for me. Kansas City obviously is a team that would like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Or even like Detroit or something now that David Montgomery's gone.
Yeah.
But I have him going back to Jacksonville. I just couldn't do it.
Probably the smart
Last
move.
one, wide receiver, Romeo Dobbs. Where does he go?
I really like Romeo Dobbs before the Jets made all their trades for, like, I guess you could call them quad A players in A.D. Mitchell and John Mechie. I would have loved to go after a guy like this for the number two, but it's not really in the market. We're going to be spending money on defense this year. So I sent Romeo Dobbs to the Niners. The Niners have way too many other issues to be thinking about drafting Casey Concepcion in the first round. So they spent a little money on an Ayuk replacement here. I think Dobbs is a very reliable guy who's not going to be asking for a ton. It will definitely spark a great bidding war. There should be some really good teams, where Vegas and the Jets might call, but it's really going to be Washington, Denver, Philly in on this guy. And I have him going to the Niners because of that.
Yeah, a ton of fitters or suitors for Romeo Dobbs in my eyes as well too. I do like the fit in Tennessee, so that's where I went. I won't really say it gives them a chance to be a number one, but it kind of does with what Tennessee currently has on that roster. He's a guy that you can go to on third down. He's a guy that you can go to in the red zone and kind of be a quarterback's best friend. He's played in a spot where it's who's hot type of ball in Green Bay. It doesn't have to be that way in Tennessee. I'd say, definitely on the roster, he'd be a clear number one to start for right now, unless they, take Carnell Tate or, whoever with their pick in the first or second round. Dobbs to Tennessee makes sense for me, and I think it could be a long-term connection over there as well, too. So those are our 19 guys. We could have been here for hours, just kept on going, but it gets a little boring sometimes when you do that. Free agency doesn't technically start until next Wednesday, but the tampering period starts on Monday.
Oh, good. Good.
So we will be seeing just about everybody sign in the first day. That's just how NFL free agency works. The race to spend your money. But we'll get into the second half starting right now.
Yeah, I basically just put down a bunch of reminders over here on our second half because I feel like we're always ending the show like, oh yeah, what's going on next week now? So World Baseball Classic, we talked about it tomorrow night. Got to tune in, watch Travis Bazzana try to do something for the Aussies. I mentioned it a little bit, Jurickson Profar. Dude, second time getting popped. That's a full year suspension, 162. So disappointing. Maybe it turns out this was the reason he had a big second half of his career resurgence. And I guess we won't be watching much of Jurickson Profar anymore. You have anything to say about that before we move on?
I bet on the Braves to win the NL East. And since I've done that, Schwellenbach and Profar they're both not playing baseball. I'll just say that in the first at least couple months of the season. Literally just a tweet right now that John Heyman says that Jurickson Profar is an excellent candidate for the Mount Rushmore of baseball cheats. So he says if he had any integrity, he would return the half year of pay he got last year. That's a bit of crazy. But John Heyman is John Heyman. He's a bit off sometimes. But yeah, very disappointing for Braves fans, I'd imagine, and disappointing for my slip as well, too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's because it's such a big deal now, right? These guys don't get let into the Hall of Fame anymore. So it's such a big deal, big part of the game, the integrity of it. And guys like, it starts with Ryan Braun and A-Rod, and it's still happens even a little bit to this day. But that's what I got about baseball. One more thing, just a note. College basketball conference tournaments. They start next week. So when we come back next Tuesday, we won't know who wins all the conferences, but we'll have an idea of who's going to be the top seeds in March Madness. And then the next Tuesday is the first four. So perfect timing to do a little bracket episode in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I'll get into what we'll be doing in the following weeks once we get past our layups bowl predictions. Yeah. But definitely stuff to talk about there. Last week was my final protest for layups because we had baseball come in and I didn't want to bet on college basketball or NBA basketball or any basketball in general. So I just protested last week. Skyler had number 3 Michigan -4.5. I had number 10 Illinois on Friday. That goes green. They win big time, so good job there. This week, there really is only one line available for WBC, so I chose Chinese Taipei over Australia on Wednesday night tomorrow. They're about -160, I think I saw on FanDuel. Probably going to be about the best odds that you could see. Pitching's good for Chinese Taipei. Australia is a bit all over the place. Maybe a bit more name power for Australia. But I think Taipei is probably the better team. So have them winning tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'll wait another week for this. It was hard for me with no official lines. I was like, is this like a well-known thing or is this like line in my head on this game just people who are diehard World Baseball Classic followers? Because like a game like this, right? Australia beat them last time. It's not going to be like that. Anyways, I'll stop rambling. More college basketball for me. Number 1 Duke. Dude, by far the best team in the nation. They crushed Michigan last week. I got them covering whatever it is, -5, -7 even, against 17 Carolina. Why it's going to be a reasonable number to look at is because Carolina beat them last time, but Carolina's best player, Caleb Wilson, probably out. So I'll take Duke.
Last week, bold predictions. I tried to go even bolder than last time. Ryan Gerard or Aaron Rai to win the Cognizant Classic. Aaron Rai played well. Ryan Gerard did not. But they both go red, of course. Good win from Nico Echeverria and choked by Shane Lowry. Kind of crazy there. Skyler had Miami winning at Philly on Thursday, around +180. It doesn't matter. It goes red, unfortunately. This week, it's not nearly as bold. Scratch pick for my golf stuff. Scotty Scheffler to win the Arnold Palmer Invitational up at the Bay Hill Club and Lounge in Florida. This course, from everything I've seen, is one of the most predictive courses in PGA realm, where if you've played it well in the past, you're probably going to play it well again. Scotty Scheffler's won this event twice in the past. He's been, on one of the most generational runs that we've seen from a player in a long time. He's won once this year. I assume he's going to win this one again. +350 are terrible odds for golf. That does not happen often, but he's the best player in the world by a long shot. So Scotty Scheffler to win the AP Invitational.
Okay. I did actually check out the Cognizant Classic, at least the leaderboards a couple times. And I saw like at one point, both your guys were like tied for 23rd. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
But respect.
Thank you.
Yeah. Pretty good. I'm going one more try at an NBA bold prediction before I just give up and go back to March Madness and baseball for the rest of the year. But I have Portland on the road going to win at Houston on Friday night. Maybe a +250. We'll see when we get there. Why I have it is because Houston is coming off a back-to-back with the Warriors. Hopefully Draymond will, kick some people, elbow some people, tire them out. Because the very next day they're going to play Portland, who's been bad because Danny Avdija has been out since the All-Star break. He's expected to be back that night. If he does, I'm going to be tuning in. It should be a very, very good game for, a 10 seed against a 3 seed.
That's going to do it, though, for episode 283. 284 next week is probably the one episode in the next month that we're not going to have anything super crazy. We'll probably talk WBC.
We'll be talking quarterbacks.
Be talking quarterbacks. So we'll figure out what's going to happen there. Like we said, for the 17th in 2 weeks, St. Patrick's Day is a good one. March Madness. So we'll get into that. And then the week after that is the one that you should have really circled, because that will be our MLB in-depth season preview, which is always a great episode because the MLB season starts in 22 days from today, Wednesday night, March 25th, with the Giants and the Yankees on Netflix. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
No free promo though. Netflix sucks. No, just kidding. But if you sponsor us, I won't say you suck. Regardless, it's going to be fun. Good month of March. There's always a debate of whether March or October is the best sports month. I don't know.
Every 4 years, it might be March.
I mean, oh, I'm frozen. Am I still frozen?
Hello?
Oh, no, I'm back.
I hear you now. Yeah.
There we go. Made it through. Leave it in.
Okay.
But March is a great month. I still think I go October because baseball playoffs just hold a special part in my heart.
Yeah.
And having the NFL on 3 days a week makes it even better. And college football too. Like, that's pretty elite. So October for me.
Yeah. Definitely a different feel going into the season when you're not projected to lose 100 games. That's definitely helping with the excitement.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, anyways, we'll see you guys next week for 284. Yeah. Until then, watch some baseball. Watch some baseball players you've never heard of before. Watch some college basketball. Watch some golf. And hopefully your team signs your favorite player in the NFL.
And if you're rooting for Brazil on Friday night, good luck, dog.
Yeah, you just got beat by the A's. First you ruled 14-4.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.